Louis, you talk about all the terms that we're dealing with these days. I was in conversation with one of our salespeople today, trying to get some sorting out. And we were talking a little bit about seasonal affect disorders and the light cure for that kind of thing. And I was trying to figure it out. I thought, okay, help me. What's the difference between a lux and a lumen? And as you talk about all these terms, I just want you to know we get tangled up in all the terminology and the physics as well. We think we're on top of it, and about the time we do, a new term comes up out there, we don't know what's going on.
So lumen is candlewatt, right?
Yeah.
And lumen, lux is the metric version of that, right?
That's right. That's correct.
Just trying to keep
there you go.
my head straight.
There you go. You got it. Yeah, that's right. That's
all right. Well, I've got 6:32. I'd like to get started, if that's okay with everybody. Welcome. I see some familiar faces or names up here this time around. It's always nice to see people are appreciating the sort of presentations that we're doing. My name's Louis, Delaware. I used to live in the Enclave until my home indeed got burnt down as well. And so I'm going through many of the same things that many of you are going through, perhaps in a different way. But nonetheless, I'm thrilled to be here moderating this session on why you want to consider lighting and wellness is not an afterthought in your home build. I'm really privileged to have two wonderful presenters tonight. The first is David Nestor. I'm going to let them introduce themselves because they'll do a much better job than me. But David Nestor is with Urban Lighting. And then Jason August. Jason is part of North Star Synergies. And so we're going to start with David on lighting and then move on to Jason and then bring it all back together at the end. So David, first off, sure. What is urban lighting? I mean, I see this cacophony of lights behind you.
We live in a world of light. So we have a 20,000 square foot decorative lighting showroom. We also, in the midst of all that, have a light lab. So we're able to really demonstrate the kind of lighting opportunities and ideas that I'm looking forward to sharing with you all tonight. In our facility here, we like to think that we're not just one particular style, but we really run the gamut from contemporary, modern, traditional, and all kinds of those fun, trendy designs that you love to hear about. Japandi, French chateau, rustic modern. There's all kinds of wonderful things. It's like candy for the eye, and we enjoy it as much as our customers do. Our goal, and my goal, has really been through the years to just kind of keep these displays changing and kind of keep the trends alive and different and new. We try to show product that kind of runs the affordability gamut, and so that's more or less what Urban Lights is. We've got 21 lighting designers that work on staff with us here that are available to help with lighting selections and lighting design. And I think that's probably the brief take on who Urban Lights is. So I've been in the business for about 40 years.
So beyond that, where are you located?
Well, we're in Denver, and just right off of Santa Fe and I-25. Just south, past Mississippi. If you know where the Overland Golf Course is, or I say with a little bit of reserve, right where South Platte and Santa Fe go into an island, there's a McDonald's right there. Everyone seems to know where that McDonald's is, and we're the big building just to the north of it. So right off of I-25 and Santa Fe.
All right, and your store is open 5 days a week, seven
days a week. No, 7 days a week. You bet.
Right.
Yep.
So people can have the opportunity to come browse through your lighting selection. All right, Jason, thanks. I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
Okay. I'm Jason August with North Star Synergies, and North Star Synergies helps businesses around the world who want to expand in the home building industry. Whether that's marketing management, consulting, strategy, sales, or just networking within the industry. So we help builders, developers, landowners, but we also help manufacturers and software companies and just connect people in the industry. I'll say that this is technically my 30th year working in the industry. So I have a lot of different uh, things that I've experienced in the industry, and a lot of that is actually from the wellness standpoint. So I'm here to just share what I know.
And you have a unique credential to yourself, right?
I have, what's that?
You're aligned with an organization called Wellness Within Your Walls.
Wellness within your walls. Yes.
Okay. So, all right,
And
cool.
so, yes, that just basically Wellness Within Your Walls is based in Atlanta, and also has international connections and just helps builders and homeowners understand how to best create healthy environments to live and work in.
All right. So David, how would you like to proceed? Do you want to go through your slide deck first?
Sure. Yeah, that'd be terrific. That would give me a cue or two, although I confess that you'll find me maybe bouncing around here just a little bit, just because so much of this is somewhat interrelated. As I was telling Louis earlier, I had a friend of mine say, trying to do lighting virtually is a little like trying to do a wine tasting virtually. It's pretty tough with something that's as touchy-feely and something you really kind of need to envision in person. It's a tough one to talk about sometimes on a screen, and I'll try to do my best though to get by that and show some fun things. So we maintain that lighting does play a huge part in our health, well-being, our mood, in some really fun, surprising ways. I think we can all remember back to a time when we would go to the hardware store, the grocery store, and we'd just pick up a 60-watt light bulb or a 100-watt light bulb or a 3-way light bulb. Really get into some big technologies by buying something like soft white or incandescent pink. And that was about as far as our technologies went. We'd buy a spotlight here and there, we'd buy a floodlight here and there, but that was about it. With the advent of LED, it's given us an opportunity to kind of take a great step back, if you will, and take a look at the natural process of light that we come to know as a circadian rhythm. And so along with LED technologies and trying to get in touch with circadian type rhythm, which is really the way in which our body and subsequently our behavior reacts to the natural cycle of daytime light, LED lighting has kind of given us that bridge to take a step back and say, how can we get ourselves more in rhythm with the rhythm? And so here we've gone from 60-watt, 100-watt light bulbs to all kinds of new terms and understandings that are kind of paving the way for us, not only into how we live out our lifestyles, but clearly how we build out our spaces, where we live, and how we choose to decorate not only with our furnitures and accessories, but also with light. And so for me, if there were an overall in all of this, it would be to think of our rooms, our homes, even our outdoors and our landscaping in terms of lighting as one huge canvas. And on that canvas, we're going to put layers of light that in the most feel-good way as it can, because it's different for each of us, is to come to grips with that circadian rhythm and understanding that we're really trying to emulate the color of light as we know it through the environment. And so circadian rhythm starts with color temperature. And sure enough, if we go to that slide, it will show you that color temperature is measured in Kelvin. And usually we look at a sunset that's happening, just a few minutes ago, that was probably 2,500 K on the Kelvin scale. And so measured in Kelvin, the scale goes from 1,000 to 10,000. Sunset is about 2,500 K. I'll throw in here that a 60-watt light bulb, the one that we used to buy at the grocery store, is about 2,700 K. So it gives you an idea of what we're talking about in that regard. Sunrise is about 3,000 K. And then finally, midday is about 6,500 K. So those lower temperatured lamps are going to be on the color spectrum in yellow, green, orange, red. And then as we think sunset, as we move towards the midday light, think in terms of more blue type light, or think your computer screen. There's a lot of that sort of bright reflection that comes off of a computer screen. So color temperature, a big deal. But as you've already insinuated, Louis, there are other terms and acronyms that pop in here as well. When the light bulb was just a 60-watt light bulb, we weren't thinking so much color temperature. We weren't thinking CRI. I think you may have alluded to that. CRI is a coloring rendering index that goes along with a light bulb. And on that scale, it generally goes from 1 to 100. The lower numbers being low on the color rendering scale, which means that they don't bring light to color the way that is most advantageous for us to see it. Easy way to understand the standard of color rendering is to understand that incandescent and daylight are rated at 100. Everything else is going to be maybe just slightly less than that. And so most LED lighting and technology these days is in the 85 to 95 category. If you think back on, well, you have to think back on it, you can still see them. The orange colored street lights that we've got out there that we know is high pressure sodium. So as you probably wouldn't be surprised to hear, the color rendering index on a high pressure sodium is about 24. So that takes you from where the color rendering would be horrible. And so that's the gamut we're talking about when we're looking for lamps or light fixtures that give us a high color rendering index. We're always looking for that. Lumens, we never thought much about lumens. But a regular 60-watt light bulb put out about 600, 700 lumens. And now all of a sudden we're buying 8, 9, and 10-watt bulbs that put out just as much light. So we think a little bit more about lumens. And then finally, I think I would say, I would just mention beam spreads. We never felt like we had as much choice about a beam spread. It simply was whatever it was. You could buy a spotlight, you could buy a floodlight, but the beam spread was about 45 degrees on one and maybe 25 degrees on a spotlight, and that was your choice. So the world has, oh my gosh, been rediscovered in that regard. So we move from color temperature, and I think we talk a little bit about, and I'll have a demonstration for you here in this next slide. If you can pass me on to the next one coming up there, Louis.
I'll be glad to, but I'm kind of confused. I think
Sure.
sunset and sunrise, the sun's in the same part of the sky, but you've got different color temperatures for sunset than sunrise. Why is that?
Well, it's all in the color. So sunset tends to have more yellows and oranges. As we move back really to sunrise, we have a brighter bluer light. And so, and I would say that sunrise at 3000 Kelvin is probably the most popular Kelvin that we sell for most that are looking for a Kelvin. If it's kind of right in the middle, where would you go? It's 3K. So to answer your question, Louis, it's a bluer light. There you go. And so there's an illustration of what they look like in your home.
Let me just make one comment based
Sure.
on what Louis said. Since this ties into wellness, I didn't know the answer to that, Louis, why you have different light in the evening rather than in the morning. So I Googled it because I didn't know.
Okay, thank you.
It says that there gets to be more air pollution during the day, and that makes air pollution, but also just other microparticles. So it could be pollen or whatever, but that changes the color temperature, and that's why morning or sunrise and sunset are different color temperatures.
Well, thank you for that. I didn't know that was the case. It's just I'm looking at it, I was confused. All right, so go ahead, David.
Yeah, good input. Thank you, Jason. Yeah, so you get here's just an illustration of what the difference in natural colors look like. And then I think we move to a little bit of a reference and discussion about about LED technology and why it is that the LED light bulb has come to be what it has been. If you think of a regular light bulb with a filament inside, it's very mechanical in nature. It comes off of an assembly line. It's a piece of hardware, and in fact, it's really a kind of a technological wonder in its own sort of way. But it's manufactured as opposed to LED lights that essentially are think baking a cake. And they even refer to it that way. It's as though they mix the diodes and they come up at the end of the day with whatever tweaking they want to do. So this opportunity to fine tune LED lights to do everything we want them to do color-wise becomes very different in terms of the ways in which it's manufactured. And so they refer to the LED light manufacturing as batches, and each batch can come out a little bit different. And what that's translated into is just a wide array and a wonderful assortment of all kinds of color combinations that come up. The other piece that we appreciate as ways in which we kind of mimic the sun, and that's a part of our trying to get back to that circadian rhythm, is to know that most LED lights can do one of two things. One is that they can be dimmed, and we're finding more and more that people will dim their lights in the morning, dim their lights in the evening, keep them full during the course of the day, but try to get it back into that circadian rhythm sense that you're keeping it dark in the morning, keeping it dark at night. I always, for me, a good illustration is you ever walked into the bathroom in the morning, you turn on that light and oh my gosh, you think it's going to knock you over. It's so bright and so harsh. You know, to be able to come in there with a dimmer that's just a little less stressful on your body and your eye is a great thing. And so stable lighting, the stable kind of white light that comes out of LED lighting is terrific in that you can kind of do a little bit more of mimicking the sun. Yeah, so I think that would lead us into this whole idea of light layers. Talk about doing a canvas. And when we think about how we can best use lighting, we think about it in three different ways. One is the ambient lighting, which is the lighting that lights our space and our areas, our general lighting. It could be a dining room fixture. It could be a couple of pendants over a kitchen counter. And it's oftentimes the most decorative part of our lighting. It's the wow part of what we do in lighting our spaces. Task lighting then is more for the areas that we consider to be more functional by nature. So we're kind of accustomed to under cabinet lighting, for one. And so in that regard, under cabinet lighting is one, and I'm going to switch here and give some various examples of how this lighting can be done on the task side. But under cabinet is great. But there are a lot of ways to get incredibly creative with task lighting, whether it's cove lighting that you're doing up above the cabinets in the kitchen, or maybe in an entryway, maybe even in a living room, where you want to do a little bit of that. Bookshelf lighting, there's some fantastic opportunities for task lighting in those areas, and to even think of task lighting as safety lighting. Think about it as a night light that goes in your kick space areas. We like to think about it and see it used more and more on stairwells. And even in unique kinds of areas that you may never think of it, but it's like putting it into a Lazy Susan and putting a little door switch on that Lazy Susan. When you open it, all of a sudden, everything inside and the back and everywhere is illuminated. Creative spaces like lighting up the closet area, and particularly the shoes, so that you're not putting on your black shoes when you meant to put on your blue shoes, something along that line. So task lighting, and I think at this point, before I get into accent lighting, the last, let me see here. Give me just a second. I'm going to take you out of my showroom and into my office area. And I've set up a number of different demonstrations for you here. One of them goes back to those three initials that were CCT up in the previous slide, Louis. And CCT is a huge concept these days. CCT stands for correlated color temperature controls, but again, it's correlated color temperature. We're hearing an awful lot about CCT controls in fixtures, and what I'd like to do is demonstrate what it means. So I'm going to hold up kind of a typical. This is a retrofit recessed light fixture. It's LED, but what's different about this fixture, if I can bring it up out of the side here, is that it has a control switch on the back side that allows you to change the Kelvin rating on this, so that if you don't like it for some reason or you want to change it up, you've got the opportunity to do that. I'm going to turn this one on because the glare off of this screen that we like to call veiling reflections. I'm going to put it back on my sign in the back of me here. But you can get an idea here, it's a pretty bright light. And right now, this is set on 5000K, if you can see it back there. And I'm going to switch it all the way quickly over to 2700. And you can, if you can see that change. Louis, are you able to see that? I'm not sure that.
I'm going to turn the screens, what I've got as presentation, so you'll come up bigger. So bear with me for a second.
Great, thanks.
Now you should come up bigger.
Perfect.
On the screen.
So we're 5000K, and here we are at 4000. I tried to find a sign or something here that would do it. This is one of those things that'd be great to see in person. This is now 3000. Make that 3500K. This is 3000K. And there's finally, that's 2700. That's that incandescent light bulb that we grew up with or were so used to in our other days of buying incandescent. And so we go from 5000, that's the blue light, to the red one. This is a little disc light, same thing. Pretty bright out there. This is a surface mounted fixture. Go into your closet areas or into any of those special areas. 3000 to, there's 5000, there's the blue again, and there's the warm. But what a wonderful opportunity this has been to be able to show product like this. And so then under again any questions there? Can I maybe stop and invite any
Yeah, if you want to mute, go for it, or put your comments in chat.
Yep.
Moderate those.
I have a question. My name is Anne. So when I think about lighting, I spent my career in the energy industry. So I think about it from an energy point of view first, and not not an accent decorative kind of a thing first. That's going to be an adjustment for me when we go to pick out fixtures. So how does the energy use of these things, not just, I know they're all LEDs that you're talking about, but in sort of the trade-offs of what we want to light from an aesthetic point of view versus how we want to think about it from an energy use point of view.
Yeah, that's a great question, and one of the exciting movements that's been going on in the lighting industry for the past 3 or 4 years are the ways in which to integrate our new technologies with energy saving opportunities. I think for me, one way to illustrate it is that we go for something that's, say, an integral decorative lighting fixture that has integral LED in it. So we're consuming, gosh, a third of what we would normally think about using in a dining room chandelier. But for me, there was a time when we used to put a couple of 75-watt floodlights up above that fixture to help illuminate the task area, whether it's a dining room table or a kitchen table. And these days, we go with the 3 to 4 watt recessed lights that have a 2-inch aperture. So not only is there less energy, but it's also less harsh on your eyes and on the way in which you experience the light. I think what's been so exciting for all of us is to see the way in which saving energy options has kind of come along and kind of paralleled the whole LED technology. They seem to go hand in hand. Not sure if that thoroughly answers the question, but that's what comes to mind for me as you ask it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Next slide, David.
Yeah. So task lighting, and then I think take me back there just one more time. And I would say accent lighting is the third one, and that's really that opportunity to take those special objects, the accessories in your home, and really get them lit in a very creative sort of way. So it could be a nook, could be special artwork, it could be artifacts, it could be anything that really allows you the opportunity to come in and use track lighting. It could, again, there's some really ingenious recessed lighting that's out there these days. I've already kind of gone there, but anywhere from 1-inch apertures up to 3, 4, and 5-inch apertures that allow all kinds of differentiated lighting in your setting. Accent lighting also gives you that opportunity to have security lighting as well, safety lighting. So oftentimes when you don't want the big lights on in your house, you don't want the high wattage stuff, oftentimes that accent lighting is just enough to give you the ambiance that makes your space feel kind of warm and cozy. So that would be my comment on accent lighting. Those are the layers. I think integrating and mixing ambient, task, and accent.
So one other question I have for you, David. I know in the past, can lights, you had to get one of 2 different versions. One was one that you couldn't have insulation up against it, and another one that you could have insulation up against it, but it was, different design. You don't have to do that today, right?
Yeah, that's right. Mostly because the heat, the wattage has gone down, and now the product that we're selling these days that's LED related, it's not an issue. And also, like this product, this is a retrofit. This would actually go into your 6-inch can that may have already been there, but it could certainly go into any can that was going into new construction as well. But your question is right on. Yes, you don't have the kind of restrictions we once did with insulated ceilings. Light controls, I think, are just a brief mention to say that this is also all kinds of new things going on with light controls. And as you think about building a new home, to at least lend a little bit of time to see what kind of new technologies are out there. And this involves Wi-Fi related light control technology to just the basic of all dimmers. We would recommend that you think about using dimmers of some kind in your application as you go forward. Light control at whatever level, and there are so many different kinds. It's really a opportunity to delve into real mood setters when you get into building your spaces out. So just a mention on that, the light controls are important, and oh my gosh, the choice, the variety is just tremendous right now.
Yeah, I would never in the past see lighting of books like this, because the heat would just be too much for most of the books.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, it is. And that's another one of those specialty areas. Kitchen is probably as good an area as any, and you can see this one kind of coming on and off here, but it's a great example of a system coming together. The ambient lighting or the pendants over the counter, the accent lighting is really going on in the baseboard area, and that's also providing us a little night light at night. If that's your only light that you leave on in the kitchen, it's great. And so you get kind of a nice idea. There's a little ambient light there going on with that little lantern that's set off on the counter. That just makes it a very warm and inviting sort of decor. When you think of task lighting, a good place to go on that is to think in terms of strip lighting and what we call tape lighting. I've got a display behind me, and I'm hopeful that I could show a little bit. So when it comes to lighting those shelves, for example, that we just had a quick look at, tape lighting is often the way to go. I put up a little display here, again, was having some issues with the veiling reflections, but thought I would give an idea of what's going on with, let me see if I can get to whoops, there we go. And so what you're looking at now, give me just a second to play with the color here. So that's tape lighting in its warm mode, and I'm running that off of a tiny little controller here that allows me to change the color, which is kind of changes the mood of an area where you're using that. And let's see, if I take it back up, there it's now going back up to that bright. Hopefully you can see a little bit of that happening over here. But that's all of this at somewhere in your planning. And this is really encourage anyone taking a look at any kind of task lighting or accent lighting. Think about where your power sources are going to be. It's planning. Wanted to give you an idea. So this is usually tape lighting is usually designated by wattage. And so they run anywhere from 2 watts per foot to 7 watts per foot. And as you think about that, you need to think in terms of your power supply. If it's a very small application, you're not talking about a piece that's any larger than this, and it could go into your cabinets underneath the application. If it's larger, this is a 300 watt unit. You want to make sure that you've talked to an installing electrician or installer of some kind, because you've got something a lot bulkier that you're going to want to find a special place for to make sure that it doesn't get to be too obtrusive. But these are the drivers that make that system go. So that's the power source. We talked a little bit about that, and the direct wire dimmable power supply is the one that we looked at in the past. But again, this is another nice example of what can be done with under cabinet tape lighting, under a bookshelf with artifacts, or over a surface area where you use it for task. Bar lighting, again, it's thinking layers of light. If it's a bar area, find a nice decorative piece that kind of sets the mood, kind of gives you some expression of what you like in a room, and let that be your decorative piece. Try to use or think about using task lighting or a functional lighting where it's appropriate. And then also think once again about accent lighting and how you might work that into a setting. The layers of light piece is an important concept to keep in mind. The unique spaces, we kind of touched on it. You know, we spend so much time in the laundry room, but don't think a lot about making it into a place that we really kind of like going into. And it's one of those, whether it's your closet with a decorative lighting fixture installed in some way, or lighting up the lighting up the clothes, the shoes, or even bringing the right kind of bright light into your laundry room, that makes it a nice place to go. We think we can do a lot of that with lighting these days. Closet, shoe rack, Lazy Susan, we talked about. But there are some unique spaces that really can lend a very, very characteristic sort of look. I think that's my short take.
All right, cool. All right. Well, I've got some questions for you, but I want to get to Jason. Allow him to talk about the other aspect of wellness, that being other things in the home that can cause people to not feel as good as they could.
Yep, that's all related to wellness. So before I get into that, I would just like to remind everyone to go to hbadenver.com and check out the Marshall Fire resources there. We have a substantial amount of companies that can help and things that we can offer. Also, companies that are part of the Home Builders Association are likely to be more reputable companies that have been around longer and are more visible. Also, if you're working with one company in the association, since we all network, and you want to ask another company in the association about that company, it's more possible than asking, a random contractor about another random contractor. The Home Builders Association nationally has about 140,000 companies, and so there's a wide variety of resources within the association. So again, go to hbadenver.com and check out the Marshall Fire resources page. So, okay, so I will start with some things, just because David did such a good job describing lighting. Some of the things that I'm sure all of you are looking at because of the passive house requirements in your area. Windows, the natural light that comes into your home, everything that David offers is complementing all of that. And of course, you're going to look at putting a lot of your windows, if you can, based on your home site, ideally on the southern side, and have overhangs, so you're getting less direct light in the summer when it's hot and the sun's higher in the sky, and more light in the winter when you do need more heat. So that again, with all of the things that David said, lighting really does affect your wellness. As David said, the high CRI, so you get true colors, that helps you. Another thing that David can help you with is the automation of everything, because it's not just being able to dim your lights in the morning, but maybe your lights just come on dim in the morning and you don't have to do anything. So David can help you with all of that stuff. Another neat thing that can be done, kind of relating to lighting and windows, is you can have liquid crystal applications on your windows or built into your windows, so that you can have different amounts of light coming in at different times of the day, just based on that. And if you don't want the liquid crystal application on your window, there's automation that you can have your window coverings open and close based not only just on the time of day, but how much light is coming into the room. So if the room is getting too hot because of the sun outside, instead of cranking up the air conditioning, you can have the shades automatically close. So that's all I'm going to say about lighting, because David can tell you everything. Wanted to mention that building a new home, you're already, in some ways, you're introducing potential new toxins into your air. Air quality is a big thing I'll get into. But there are a lot of things that newer homes are built with that are already better than previous, your existing home. As you might know, there's, supposedly in 1979, you might think, if you're past that, then you're fine as far as lead-based paint, so you don't have any lead in your house. Well, actually, older homes had lead, and up to pretty recently. So there was a Reduction of Lead in Drinking Water Act of 2011, because there is still lead. There might not have been lead in the pipes coming into your home. There might not have been lead in your pipes in your home, but in your plumbing fixtures, there could have been lead up until 2014. So that's when this 2011 Act came into effect. And so if you have plumbing fixtures newer than that, which your new home will have, you automatically have better water quality. There's lots of things that you can do with water quality. You may think of getting different kinds of filtration systems in your home. There are a lot of things that are available under $200 that can filter the wide variety of things in your home. There are also systems that are $6,000, $10,000 or more. But if you're looking to be cost effective with your build, you can make sure that at the point that the water comes into your home, it gets filtered with inexpensive filters that you change, maybe twice a year or every 8 months, something like that. And you can greatly increase the water quality in your home and the taste of your water, even if that matters to you. It'll also improve the life of your plumbing fixtures, everything from your pipes to your shower heads and faucets to the longevity of your washing machine and dishwasher. Again, only spending a couple $100, you don't necessarily need to go to like the reverse osmosis level or other things that are super expensive that of course do help more, but they're not the only option. Another thing with plumbing that is, again, inexpensive because it's just something to set. When you get your new water heater, whether it's, a tankless water heater or one with a tank, you can set the water temperature, and that's a no-cost thing. But, if you have it set at 140 degrees, you can get burnt within 3 seconds. But a lot of people set their plumbing fixture or their water heater to 120 degrees. And with 120 degree water, you can get a serious burn in 10 minutes. And if you're not middle-aged, if you're older or younger, then your skin is thinner and you can get burnt even more quickly. So that's just something to think about when you're setting up your home. Nothing needed to buy. One thing that you can buy that helps, I know a lot of people who do put this in the wellness category. Some people might not, but a lot of people are sensitive to sound. And there's a couple things you can do in your home to help with that. The easiest being when your home is built, before the drywall goes up, and you may not be able to do this if you're working with one of the production builders that are rebuilding homes, but if you are working with a custom builder, you can insulate interior walls, such as especially around powder rooms, owner's suite, things like that, and it will keep your home quieter. And so that's something to think about, is just interior insulation. Decorative things that can also be on your walls that are sound panels as well, to absorb some of that sound. One thing that does absorb sound from a wellness point of view, though, that is not recommended by Wellness Within Your Walls and other institutions that deal with health and built environments, is carpet. And Yeah, there are carpets that are healthier than others. Wool carpet is supposed to be the healthiest, but still, the fibers can trap a lot of things that can affect your indoor air quality, whether it's pollens or pollutants or whatever. Even the wool carpets can trap all those things. So from a wellness perspective, it's suggested to get surfaces that are not carpet. And there's a lot of different options. The harder the surface you go, so like a tile, of course, is going to echo a lot more. And that's the drawback, but it will help your indoor air quality and the cleanliness of your home to have hard surfaces. So there are softer surfaces that are still healthy and work well. So, when we're talking about flooring, carpets, a lot of the carpets that aren't a wool carpet are, synthetic fibers, but to have all the stain proofing and everything else, a lot of them are mixed in large vats of chemicals. You can, ask your local carpet people about it and they'll tell you that. And there's also a lot of stuff that gets trapped under the carpet. There are things that can prevent things getting trapped under the carpet, but it'll still get trapped between the carpet fibers. So again, if you go with, for example, hardwood flooring where you can, with coatings on it that are environmentally friendly from an air quality perspective, is a good way to go. Let's see. Talking more about indoor air quality, I'm sure a lot of you have municipalities that you're rebuilding in that are requiring pretty good control of indoor air quality already, something that, again, in previous homes you probably didn't have an ERV or an HRV for air recovery and air exchange. And again, between those two, HRVs transfer heat from outside air, ERVs transfer heat and moisture from outside air, and that can be helpful because we have a dry climate. So a lot of times we want to be increasing moisture, but sometimes we have areas like kitchens and bathrooms that have too much moisture, and those systems can help us even out those levels. A lot of people use humidifiers in their furnace systems. Those are good from a wellness perspective as far as keeping the humidity at a good level. However, there's a lot of negative with them as well from a mold and mildew perspective. And so sometimes people install UV filters in furnaces. And if you look at how UV light kills things, it's very effective, but it's passing through your forced air ducts super quickly, like in probably less than a second. And for example, to kill fungus, UV light will do it, but it takes 45 minutes. So make sure when you're evaluating all these different technologies, there's a lot of things that are available. Just make sure that you understand the effectiveness of different things that you can put in to your home. So, air conditioning also dries the air. So a lot of people know about the option, and yes, it can be more expensive, but you can have radiant heat. What a lot of people don't know is that, so basically radiant heat is taking a thermal mass, which is usually, let's say, your concrete floor or a concrete foundation wall, something like that, running tubes of water in it and heating your home by heating the thermal mass. You can also cool that thermal mass and it will cool your home. So that's something that's energy efficient, doesn't change the humidity level of your home. And you're not blowing a bunch of extra stuff around your home when you're just trying to heat or cool. Of course, you still need to have an air exchange in your home, but that's separate from extra time pushing stuff around your home just to heat and cool it. Of course, I'm sure most of you are going to look at radon mitigation systems. One thing to think about that, you can always pre-plumb for a radon mitigation system without putting in the full system. But a lot of people will say, okay, well, I'll have my home built and then I'll check once the home is built and see if there is radon. And if there is, then I'll spend the $1,000-ish to put in a radon mitigation system. What a lot of people don't realize is that in new construction, the radon levels are not necessarily stable for the first 3 years. So you could be measuring and it could be much higher than it will end up being, and you probably wouldn't mitigate again anyway then. But if you measure and the radon levels are really low, they may be artificially low, and within the next few years come up to a higher level. So if you decide not to go with a radon mitigation system, it may be something that you want to retest in a couple years, 3 years, so that you can see, do you have radon in your home, which can of course cause lung cancer. And so it's not a good thing. A lot of people will say, well, I'm not putting a basement in my home, so radon's heavier than air, so I don't need to worry about that. I've had people who have had significant radon levels here in the greater Denver area, especially where a lot of you are, closer to the foothills, that have significant radon on the first level. So something to think about. So those are some quick things. The other thing really is, when you're looking at wellness in your home, it can greatly improve your health. We've actually had several people who have come to us and, they're in their 30s and they look like they're in their 60s or 70s, and just aren't doing well. And it turns out that they've been living in a new residence that does not, the thought was not there for healthy living. And we go in and we renovate or build them a home paying attention to wellness, and they get much healthier. So this isn't just necessarily people who are chemically sensitive. It can be all of us. And you might think you have allergies. You might think, you just get sick a lot, and it could really be your home making you sick. So these are real issues that are out there. And, it's indoor air quality, but it's also the things that your home is made out of. So, a lot of people will say, well, I have 0 VOC paints, so I'm set, and I don't have carpet, so I'm set. But there's a lot of adhesives, for example, that are used in homes, and there's a lot of fiber boards and things like that that can off-gas formaldehyde and other toxins. So, the more that you can do to select components that are healthier, they may not be that much more expensive. They may not be more expensive. And so it's worth looking into for your health. So that's my summary, and happy to answer any questions.
Well,
Again, go to hbadenver.com for all of the resources we have. And thanks.
So a couple of questions for you. What are your thoughts in regards to antimicrobial coatings?
Antimicrobial coatings, on what things?
Like
doorknobs?
doorknobs, door levers, on faucets, on other things that you commonly touch.
Mhm.
It's become more of an issue, especially with COVID, that people are contemplating that. Just want to find out your thoughts on it.
Okay. Well, I would say that's one thing that I don't have a lot of experience with. So I would check with, other experts, but I will tell you a couple things. One, if it's antimicrobial, it can help in certain things, with bacteria growth. I would say that an antimicrobial thing is probably more effective on bacteria than viruses. So it may help with bacterial infections, but not something like COVID. It just depends on the ingredients or, whatever the chemical composition of the antimicrobial things are for that. I would say more important than having antimicrobial coatings on certain things, because certain metals are naturally that way, and that can be a good thing. But if you're having like a spray-on coating or something like that, one other thing to think about just in general is having surfaces that are just, having things in your home, surfaces, but also just everything in your home. If there are things that are more cleanable, more washable, then that's a good way to keep your home, more disease-free, rather than having, rather than relying on just specific coatings, and you can always just use alcohol or something like that to clean things off, because you may be relying on an antimicrobial coating that then wears off. If it's not, guaranteed for 15 years or something, it may be antimicrobial in the beginning, but then not last. And again, some materials are naturally antimicrobial, so they will always be antimicrobial, but it just depends on what the technology is.
So you were mentioning about radon. Isn't it better to build a radon system in from the get-go? Just because if you do it
Right.
afterwards, it's this ugly piping up the side of your house. Whereas, wouldn't it be better for it to go up through the walls?
So one of the things that I had mentioned when I was talking about that is you can pre-plumb for a radon system. So, again, it's great to just do the whole thing from the get-go so that it's just done and you don't have to worry about it, because you're not going to have accurate readings for the first few years. You may not have accurate readings for the first few years anyway. So good to do it from that perspective from the get-go. But if you just choose not to do it from the get-go, you can still pre-plumb for it. We just finished a home up in Estes Park, and it's, the homeowner decided not to go for the full radon mitigation system, but she wanted to make sure everything was set up and pre-plumbed for it, even though her home is significantly above the ground and should not have any issue with that. Pre-plumbing does make it just easier in general and more aesthetically pleasing.
All right, thank you. So David, I want to come back to you. You were just primarily just talking about like 4 or 5 different color temperatures, but aren't LEDs, aren't a lot of them out there basically almost infinitely changeable in regards to the color temperature?
Yeah, good point. Actually, there's an awful lot of the technology that out there is called warm to dim. So you can start at 5,000 and you can just gauge it down with a control device that takes you through the whole spectrum, all the way down. It's a terrific technology.
So in essence, on the 4th of July, I could turn my kitchen into firework display.
And keep in mind, they've got that RGB, red, green, blue. So you can set up a disco, Louis. You have a great time and just keep everything rocking and rolling, changing those lights. They strobe, they do everything. It's great.
All right. So the other one that we talked about last week, I learned something from you in regards to people at 60 need a lot more lighting than they did at 20. So your take is, how bright should you go in regards to selecting your lights, because you don't want to have to keep replacing the whole fixture, right?
Sure, that's right. Good idea. And what you bring to mind is that thought of adding a sensor out there when you can, so that when you're walking towards the stairs or you're walking into a room that's dark, that you have some sort of task lighting that is connected to that sensor that comes on as you're coming into that area. These are all things we can do in a new build that would be very difficult to do were it a remodel situation. So to think about safety in that regard, to think about light levels, then I think we're kind of touching on lighting controls again, and that's really being able to get that light at a level that's most comfortable for your eyesight, or any particular sort of condition that's going on for you that's a challenge in some way, and visually be able to control the dimness and the brightness of the light source.
Well, I know this firsthand. My mom passed away when she was 94, and she went out and bought the brightest lights she could get before LEDs. And it was like going in there, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get a sunburn here in just a few minutes time. So your take as to having dimmers is appropriate to be able to bring it down to my level that's more appropriate for me than for her, but nonetheless allow it to be able to run the gamut of illumination levels.
That's a great example. And what that also brings up for me, I was having a conversation before I stepped in on this conversation tonight. One of my salespeople who said, you ought to mention that color is sometimes cultural. So there are some people that have grown up in a culture where they were used to a particular color of light that
Sure.
was very blue or very, very orange or very green, and never think of it. But we actually, and this particular designer said, that's why I have those really blue lights in that crystal chandelier. There are just some culturally that really like that bright blue light. So you never know.
Last question for you, and that relates to seasonal affect disorder. I know we don't get a lot of that out here, that being like more commonly in places like Seattle, the Midwest, and the like, where the winters are very dreary, and it has a profound effect on people. What do you do to help people with that circumstance?
And we've never had a request to treat SAD, although my understanding is that coming out of like the Mayo Institute, I think, and I can't remember who does the light box, but I think the light box technology that's been out there for a long time is probably one that's still used from time to time for seasonal affect disorder. And it's really just it's the whole idea of it's playing on circadian rhythm again and trying to bring the bright light to help with that disorder, and it does have some success. I can't show you I don't have the statistics on it, but essentially what it comes down to is about 10,000 lux of light that comes out of a light box. And outside of that, Louis, I'm not certain of other light treatment.
I think what they do is, like, we get lots of brilliant blue skies here during the day, so that doesn't affect us here so much. When you're living in a place like Seattle in the middle of winter, you don't have that. And so a lot of those light boxes do indeed have more blue component to them. So
That's right.
That's my questions. Anybody want to ask these as two esteemed gentlemen about anything wellness related, whether lighting or the general aspects of the home? Well, with that, I want to thank both David and Jason for your time tonight and your incredible knowledge that you have. And again, every time I listen to both of you guys, I learn more. So it's great.
Well, I would just like to pass along my good wishes to everyone who is either building or rebuilding. And if we can be of any help in consultation, we're happy to do that. We're offering special discounts. If you remember the words Marshall discount, that's all you need. You'll get an additional 45% off. So, and also 10% off ceiling fans. So come see us and we'll help you anyway. We don't care. We'll just, we'd love to give you some consultation.
And as Jason was saying earlier, go to hbadenver.com and there's a Marshall page there, and there's a list of other discounts as well as what Urban Lighting is offering.
And if you have any questions for me, again, I'm happy to answer your questions. So you can just email me, Jason at northstarsynergies with an S on the end.com. And if you want to call or text me, I try to be very responsive with texting. If you have a quick question, my number is 303-726-5990. I don't know an answer, I'm happy to point you to hopefully in the right direction.
Excellent. Well, with that, I want to say adieu to everybody and have a pleasant evening.
Good. Thank you all very much.
Thanks.